At Lounges TV, we think you should be paid quickly. So if you want to profit from your talent within 24 hours, then make sure it's on Lounges TV.
A very warm welcome to the Voice of Boxing podcast. Thanks for joining us. We're in association with Lounges TV, the streaming platform. And we've had all sorts of guests drop into the brilliant studio here in Mill Hill. And there's another one that came in earlier. Absolutely fantastic. He blends music, he blends sport, he's intelligent, and he really knows boxing. I was joined by Ashley Rak-su. Well, thanks for joining the Voice of Boxing podcast in association with a great streaming platform that is Lounges TV. Another fantastic guest today. We've had a myriad, a total assembly of people from the boxing world in and around it. And today, somebody who's dipped his toes into the boxing waters in the ring. He's a big fan outside of it. He's a musician. Great guy as well. Let's welcome Ashley Rak-su to the studio. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Really, really nice to see you. Watched a little bit of you in the boxing ring. Know that you've got a bit of a bug for that. You're obviously from the famous band Rak-su, who had that great success back in X Factor a few years ago. I don't really know where to start. I guess I'll start with, where did the love of boxing come from?
So always been sport obsessed, to be honest with you. Growing up, played non-league football, played other sports to like a good level when I was at school as well. But boxing was something that I would passively enjoy until 2012 and seeing AJ in the Olympics. And then that kind of started to light a fire, and after that I started to really follow boxing.
You grew up around these parts, didn't you? North
Yes.
London.
Yeah. So AJ is someone who like I know from growing up as well. So just seeing him at the Olympics, obviously everywhere near London was in complete Olympic fever anyway. So to see somebody that I knew competing in those Olympics and ultimately for him to triumph and get that gold medal was like, yeah, it definitely holds a special place in my heart, and that lit a fire for boxing as well.
You say you knew him. Was it through people or was it personally? Were you hanging around with him?
Just personally, he's a couple of years older than me. So we had we still got mutual friends now, to be fair. And if we saw each other, then we would obviously say hi and have a conversation. We were trying to, when we first started trying to make music as well, he'd give us a little bit of support too. So we're not best friends or anything like that, but like if for some reason I needed to, I would like to think he'd pick up my call.
AJ lit the fire for you in the Olympics. You say you were a sports mad before, played football to a pretty high level. Did you want to go into sport, or was music also an equal love?
Ironically, if you'd spoken to me when I was a teenager, I would have told you I just want to be a footballer.
Right.
Music was something that I'd always done and I'd always loved. And my mentality was I would make music forever, regardless as to what happened. I didn't really make music for it to become a career. It's not what I did it for. I just really, really liked it. It can be somewhat therapeutic for me as well. Like if I'm feeling a type of way about anything emotionally, it's how I would also express myself. And I think I have a personality of liking to see things grow and liking to progress. So naturally, with the boys who are my best friends as well, we were always going to grow and progress, but we never knew where it was going to head towards. Whereas football was something that I was like, yeah, this I really want to do.
The boys from Rak-su, you hung around as kids, did you?
Yep.
And played sport and sort of made music?
Yeah, so sport is a really important thread, to be honest with you. Me and Miles used to play football against each other from when we were about 10 years old.
Okay.
And that's how we first became friends. And then we ended up playing for the same football team throughout from like year 9, 10, 11. And then we went to the same football program for sixth form as well. We played in the same non-league teams too. So like that's always been there. Me and Jamal, have played for the same basketball team since before the X Factor as well. And even afterwards too, like West Harts Warriors, which is based in Watford, like regardless, it's quite funny really, regardless as to what was going on at the time and where we'd be touring or whatever, we would still, whenever possible on a Wednesday night, head to basketball training or still playing the game. So yeah, it's always been like a really important thread.
That's fantastic. And sport was your love.
Yeah.
Football, obviously. I know you're a Man United fan. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I
Yes.
can't agree with you. We can't be best mates, I'm afraid.
I mean, it's hard
But
times
that's
for us at
okay.
the moment. So.
I prefer to sit on this side of the table. But why? I guess people ask me why I'm a Liverpool fan living in London, and there's a story behind it. Why are you a Man United fan?
So I was actually in foster care when I was a child for a bit. And my older foster brother, who was like quite a big influence on me when I was really young, he supported Manchester United. So kind of just copying him, to be completely honest with you. And then I remember watching the Champions League final. And obviously when United beat Bayern Munich as like a really young kid. And that's like
that classic win.
Early memory for me. And then I also remember seeing Paul Scholes score a hat-trick, I think against West Ham. I think it might have been like a 7-1 win in like the year 2000 or something like that.
Great player.
And then that was it. Like from
Underrated player, great player.
He was, so growing up, it was like Paul Scholes my favourite player. Manchester United, I was just locked in from that moment.
Gosh, all right. So you're a Man United fan. That's fine. We can move on from that. No, but a
I'm
good footballer as well. Where did you play? What position?
So I was a centre back. Like if I had one game to play in my life, it would be a centre back.
Right.
And then once I
Tough, quick.
Quick, tough, read the game pretty well, but with very minimal technical ability.
That's the honest truth.
That is the honest truth. So whenever I had trials at places, I got coaching too late, and I wasn't particularly gifted.
Do you have trials anywhere big?
Yeah, like trained with Arsenal, trials at Tottenham, got offered a contract at Bristol Rovers, Cardiff as well.
Serious stuff.
So yeah, I was decent, but all of this happened when I was like 15, 16.
Yeah.
And I remember Tottenham was the first place I went to. And they specifically said to me, next year, we go to under 16s and there's no under 15s age group. So you're going to be playing against people a year above you and you just don't have the time to develop enough technically to get to where you need to get to. And I found that was a common thread really. So it was like, if I was playing in a game and all I had to do was defend, I was actually really good at that. But then if I was in a better team and we had time and space on the ball and we were in possession, that's where for me things would become a little bit more difficult because I just hadn't developed that side of my game. So yeah.
Was it a dream shattered at that time, or was it actually? Was it bad?
Yeah. I remember my mum and my uncle came with me to Tottenham, and a gentleman called Chris Ramsey, who was lovely to me, to be fair, like gave me the bad news afterwards. And I remember driving home in the car and like crying quietly because I guess in my head I was like, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be a footballer. And then I got scouted, and it was like, yeah, this is the dream coming true. This is supposed to happen, you know. And then you go there, you get that news, and it was like, oh, okay, damn, that's kind of like 14-year-old me's lifelong dream. I've just been told that's probably not going to happen.
I know that Trent Alexander-Arnold has put a lot of effort into that sort of area where players get to late teens and they get told you're not going to quite make it. And I think if you put everything into it, it must be really devastating, because we know in boxing, for example, you can turn professional, you can have amateur fights or no amateur fights and turn professional and at least try and make a career. But I think sometimes with football, especially if you've got high expectations and then you're told at various, not this level, not this level, not this level, and there's a tough future then ahead if you haven't got a backup.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I hadn't got to that stage, to be completely honest. So I think it's most detrimental when you've got certain kids who have been in an academy from the age of 8 to 18, and then they get released, and it's like they know nothing else. They didn't focus in school. They didn't have any, that's like really difficult. For me, it was more of an emotional thing whereby I think I'd probably been playing in places that were, not to be disrespectful, maybe a little bit beneath where I could have been. And so that created an environment whereby I was always a better player wherever I was. And so I held myself in a certain image. So Tottenham was kind of the first time where it was like, no, you're not that good. And so that was really difficult for me to deal with. I think the only knock-on effect that it had on me was it probably made me doubt myself quite a lot. So the following year, I went to a trial game actually at Bristol City. Played really well in it. They didn't sign me, but then they sent me to Cardiff from Bristol Rovers as well. Went to Cardiff for a week. and went to Bristol Rovers, and Bristol Rovers ended up offering me a contract. And when it came to me going there, they didn't really have a lot of money. So instead of paying people in their scholars, they'd associated themselves with a local college. And it was cool, we'll take on 25, 30 players and hope that some of them are going to be good enough to get there.
Yes.
And I went down there to register on the first day of pre-season, and I ended up coming home and not going back. And I said to myself at the time, I need to do my A-levels, because if football doesn't work out, I need to be able to go to university. I need a plan B. But in hindsight, I bottled it because my confidence was just dented. It never fully recovered. I didn't see myself in the same way as I'd done previously. When I was down at Cardiff and I was on trial there as a centre-back, they brought over a kid from Ireland who played for Ireland at centre-back, who was the same age as well. And we played the game against Birmingham on the weekend. And the only thing I remember from this game is I'm at right-sided centre-back, right? We've gone kick-off, back to centre-back, and back to centre midfielder. To me, I've had a bad touch. The striker's nicked it off my toes and ran through. I actually don't remember anything else about the game. Yeah. I don't even remember if he scored or not, but all I remember is that mistake. Yeah. And so I think when it came to Bristol Rovers, because of that and because of a Tottenham thing, I was just like, my confidence wasn't there and I just didn't back myself. And so, yeah, I bottled it basically. You
talked about foster care, you talked about sort of, growing up, sport, education. How was it, your childhood and your teenage years?
Mum is like Superwoman. And yeah, it's funny when I think about it. Anytime I want to complain about me having a difficult time in life, it's like, I really, really didn't. She definitely had some adversity to battle through, and while she was trying to do that, up until like the age of like 7, looking after me as well was a bit of a difficult thing. So I was with a foster family for a bit. So yeah, growing up there were some complications for sure. And I guess in a way there's probably some scars from it, and it definitely affects the way that I navigate the world, but some of it's also been a blessing as well, and everything could have been a whole lot worse. So I'm grateful for obviously what I had and ultimately the upbringing I've had, because that's what's brought me to where I am now today, right? So yeah.
I love the blend of sport and music, particularly in boxing, the ring walk musics, the music we put on features at Sky for so many years. There's something that just lifts it, doesn't it, in sport. Music became, I guess, your first love. Tell me about Rak-su forming and then obviously the breakthrough in the X Factor.
Yeah, so been making music. I think I made my first song with my friends in like year 6. So all throughout secondary school, I was making music as well. I was in a little grime crew called TBM, which Miles is in with a couple of other friends, Ollie Mattis, Jay Stevenson, and Ben Cownan. So we had always made music together, me and Miles, who's in Rak-su as well, especially from a really young age. Jamal and Mustafa were our friends and were kind of always around us, and Mus was involved in breakdancing, and we would go and watch him dance, and if we went to the studio, he would come to that too. It actually wasn't until after university that I was at a house party with Jamal, and girls kept on asking him to sing, and I'd not heard Jamal sing before, and he sang, and it was like, okay, whoa, like, your voice is amazing.
You can sing.
Yeah, like, let me hear something you've recorded. And he was like, I've never recorded anything before. And I was like, that is ridiculous. You're coming to the studio with me, like, by force. So me and Jamal went, first of all, started making some songs. And then he turned around to me and was like, okay, I really want to do this. And because I've been making music for such a long time, I was like, are you sure? Because I kind of have an inkling of how much it's going to take for us to get to where you want to go. Between music, between trying with football, I was like, we've just finished university, we're starting to work, like, are you sure you want to embark on this journey? And Jamal was like, yeah, I really want to do it. And so I was like, okay, all right, cool. And I can come up with a plan, let's go for it. So we made a plan.
And following your passions, so good.
Do you know what? It is so good, but I was a bit daunted by it because I'd felt like I've followed a passion before and it's not worked out.
Okay.
So I was kind of looking
like
at
a double
like,
thing. And
yeah, like, bro, are you sure you want to do this? Because if you want to do this, like, I can see how this is successful, but I also am aware of how much it's going to take.
I had a similar thing because I always wanted to be a sports commentator since I was a kid, but I also quite liked acting.
Okay.
So it was like a double path. And I realized at university I wasn't good enough, and all the actors were better than me. And I was slightly out of my depth. Maybe like you with football, you found, okay, there's the rejection. And I thought, I can't do that. So one path was closed. And I thought, well, does that mean I'm not going to be a sports commentator? So, and I followed that dream, which was my dream from before. So a bit like you with music and sport, and you get one's closed off, you worry, don't you, that the other one won't work out?
100%. But ultimately, he looked me in my eyes and was like, I really want to do this. And I was like, I do have faith in it. I can see how it does work. So if you're going to commit to it, then I will, more so than I'll commit to it, I'll commit to you. As my friend, if this is what you want to do and you tell me you're all in, I will jump all in with you. So me and him started to gig, started to release music. And then because Miles and Mustafa, just as our best mates, were always around us anyway, it got to a point where we were like, look, you're still dancing and performing. And Miles, I know you're still making music, so you might as well just get involved. And then that's... Yeah.
So the four of you became Rak-su?
Yeah. Well, me and Jamal were Rak-su originally.
Okay.
And then
the other two
Mustafa
joined.
and Miles joined, yeah.
Okay. And the X Factor?
So we are at this point maybe 2.5 years into a journey. Yep. We're doing every open mic that we can do in the country. Yep. We've had a couple of plays on BBC Introducing. We've done like a launch night in Watford. We've released a couple of projects.
So you were known around.
The ball is rolling at this point, and we've been scouted for The Voice, scouted for the X Factor, and turned them both down.
Okay.
It wasn't aligned with the music that we were listening to at that time. If that makes Will from like an Afro-Caribbean background, and it's like it was just a completely different world. But then the second time we got scouted for the show, we were like, do you know what? We were in my house, and we didn't know what to do. And I'm the pragmatic one. The other guys are more talented than me. I'm just the thought process behind it. And I was like, let's write out a list of goals.
Good to know your strengths.
Exactly that. I was like, let's write out a list of goals. And because the first audition was going to be in September, and we were having this conversation in January, and I was like, if we can achieve X, Y, or Z by the summer, then we know we don't need to go on the show. But if we haven't achieved these goals, then let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. So lo and behold, summer came, and we had not achieved those goals. So we were like, okay, we have to try and make the most of this. And we were like, as long as we go on the show and we perform our own songs, we control our own narrative.
That was key.
That was key, because it was like, we felt like the X Factor has success with Little Mix, One Direction, Ollie Murs, JLS, very pop, lots of singing, etc. We were like, we're a group of four with one singer, two rappers, and a beatbox from the dancer. This is not going to work. So we were like, the important thing is, if we're only on TV for 3 minutes because they say no to us, that we are ourselves. That
authentic.
If we're gonna get rejected, let's get rejected being our authentic selves, doing what we love, so at least we can hold our heads high and be happy with whatever happens. And so we had that conversation with the producers beforehand, and we're like, look, if we come on the show, like, you have to let us do our own thing.
And they said yes.
And they said yes, yeah.
And the rest is history, as they say. What was it like winning?
Pretty surreal, to be honest with you. I think everyone in the group will have a slightly different vantage point on it. But for me, I felt like I was so locked in throughout the process on a week by week basis. I was never really thinking about winning. For me, it was just as simple as, okay, we've got another 5 minutes in front of us.
One step at a time.
Not even one step at a time. It's like, how much would it cost for us to get 5 minutes in front of 2 million people to perform our own song? It's like, it's impossible. So for me, every week was, let's just nail this week, this week, get that, and we'll be good. And it got to a point where I was like, even if we go out now, we've had so much exposure, we will be full-time musicians.
We're good.
We've got a chance. So that's all we could ask for. And I remember the only time I actually thought about winning was in the final on the second day, and I've never made that many mistakes. I think up until that point,
just when you needed to perform.
But it was a focus, because up until that point, it was execute. The moment I started thinking about winning, it was suddenly, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then everything went proverbially tits up. But when we did it, it was elation. It was elation. It was relief, because it was such a long process as well. It was. Even now, I'm still a little bit dumbfounded, and that's how it felt. It was like, what has just happened? Like, we're just in an arena for the 14,000 people, our family, our friends are there. Like, it's just, yeah, it was just crazy. And it was just like, wow, I guess what's gonna happen from tomorrow? What does life turn into now?
Before we get on to boxing and talking my sport, I guess I do want to know what happened. I know there was some ups and downs. You say about the elation. I mean, it's an incredible achievement first and foremost, but obviously the aftermath and the difficulties, I guess, with fame and with money and with all the. I suppose you had the attention. People wanted to hang on to you. All of those sort of things. How have you dealt with that? And where are we now in 2024 with Rak-su?
How have we dealt with it? There's a argument to say not very well. There's definitely been a lot of mistakes made. There's been Mustafa is in Egypt at the moment because things just got way too much, and he struggled with a number of things, and that was really difficult. Miles has probably had the most roller coaster time because he's had like some real highs and done some cool stuff like going, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. But also in that same time period, he nearly died in a snowboarding accident and was in intensive care for like 12 days as well. Plus some other things too. Me and Jamal kind of stayed like a little more grounded, but there's definitely, I'd spent my whole life not really understanding what anxiety was, for example, and during this process a few years ago I was like, oh, okay, I finally understood what social anxiety was, whereby when we were having issues with the label, I remember not wanting to go out in public because I didn't want to be seen, because the negative self-image that I had, I was projecting into other people. And so I was like, I don't want anyone to see me because they'll be looking at me thinking I'm a failure. And it was only after that I kind of realized it was because I'm looking at myself thinking that I'm a failure, and I'm like, everybody else must feel that too. When actually they're probably not. Whenever anybody saw me, it was always good, but it was an anxiety of something, I suppose, that wasn't real. So there was definitely some real tricky moments that we've had to try and navigate our way through. And some of it we've done well, like me, Miles and Jamal are still the best of mates, and we still see each other all the time, and we still speak on a daily basis. So at like core level, that's gone really well. But then where Mustafa's concerned, that's quite a sad story, to be honest with you. And obviously musically, we're not where we want to be, but I'm proud of us for reigniting a fire and having a plan to get back to where we were.
So you're reigniting it, and what is that plan to get back on top of the world, presumably?
Yeah, so I think we have a really interesting story that we haven't really spoken about too much, to be honest. And even when
I can feel it, I can hear bits, I can hear little snippets.
Because even when we were on the show, we were really resistant to a lot of the questions that they asked us, because we were like, we don't want anything negative here. We want the only narrative to be that we're really good friends, and we want everything else to just be left aside. And even as we were going through all of this, there were certain times where the press would reach out to us as well, and we're like, no, we don't really want to talk about it. We just want to keep it on the music. But at the moment now, we're kind of like, do you know what? There's an opportunity to talk about this stuff and to let people know the journey that we have been on, but not from a place of like, like poor me, but from a place of acceptance, learning, and how it's molded us and how it's going to help launch us into the next phase, you know? So we're hoping to do it as like almost like...
You get wiser, don't you, after the ups and downs of life?
100%. 100%. So we're hoping to do it as like almost like a reality TV series, which we would love to have following us over the course of next year, of making an album, putting the songs out, promoting it, and just showing everybody a real behind the curtains. Like if we go and have a meeting with a record label or with a booking agent and they reject us, for people to hear that and to see it and actually know what goes on.
I think that sounds fantastic. The comeback story is always greater than the original.
100%, but I would love to do it in real time so that actually nobody knows if it's going to be a comeback or not, which I think actually will make it more entertaining.
Absolutely.
Where it's like...
You don't know, and it's almost like a surprise at the end of it. Do you believe that you will, though, that you've got the talent, that you've got the ability, you've got the dedication, that it can go right second time around?
100%. I definitely believe that, and it's just about we have to believe in it, and we have to double down on it, and we have to run at it like there is no other option, like there is no other way forward. You know what I mean? I think if there's any doubt in our minds or there's any hesitancy, it won't work. So
So we pitching the doco. What would you say to everyone out there who's listening?
To everyone out there who's listening, I would say you should watch this, whether you're a Rak-su fan or not, because it's going to be a story of best friends trying to chase and recover their dream, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, but having a lot of fun on the way.
I can't wait for that. Sounds absolutely brilliant. Right, I want to know why you got into the ring. And okay, so you had the love from AJ, you had the connection from Watford, and then he goes and wins the Olympics. He goes and then changes British boxing forever, into the stadium shows, etc. So it lit a fire for you. Talk about reigniting Rak-su. It lit a fire for you in boxing. First in terms of following it, I guess, and then going down the gym and trying to recreate some of those sporting skills from your youth?
Yeah, so before the X Factor happened, actually, so in 2016, I went down to Watford ABC, and I did a couple of sessions there and really liked it. But then everything with music started to snowball, so I had to leave it alone. But then during the pandemic, we were watching, it may have been AJ Ruiz 2.
In Saudi?
Yeah.
Yep. 2-time.
So we were at Miles's house, and our friend Luke Groves, who's a boxing coach, was there as well. And we were watching it, and I was talking about, obviously, AJ started boxing at 18, and 3 years later was in the Olympics.
Yeah, he played some football. He was a runner and all that.
Yeah, so I was like, what if I've got some type of God-given talent for it? If I start now, do you think I can make Paris? So my friends are all laughing at me, but I was like, sometimes I just go for things in life. I'm like, if I can see a way where it could potentially happen, I'm going to give it a go. If I fail or not, this is what I learned from football. After not pursuing Bristol and me being very bitter about football for a long time, the change in it was for the rest of my life. If I ever got any opportunity or any thought, I was like, I am going for it, because I never want to feel.
Can you spend time with my kids? Because that's I want them to follow their dreams, their passions, and if they get stuck, not to worry about going for something else.
Yeah, because and that was my thing. It was like, honestly, for years I was so bitter and so unhappy that I hadn't pursued football to where I should have done. It just made me really, I was just quite despondent with a lot. So from that moment on, I was like, any opportunity, even if it's only like a 0.5% chance, if I want to do it, I'm going for it. So I was like, I'm going for boxing. And so our friend Luke, who was a boxing coach, was like, all right, cool, come down the gym, South Oxley Boxing Club, and I'll teach you. We'll see what happens.
Good club.
Yeah, went down to the gym. Luke started teaching me. A few months after that, I did a white collar fight. It became very apparent I was not going to make the Olympics. And there was way more to learn than I was going to ever.
I love your honesty. It's great. It's great.
I think AJ being the...
Were you just not that talent? What was it? In that white collar fight, what was it? Was that nerves? Was the first one?
Do you know what? It wasn't actually the white collar fight. It was just how bad I was in general. So at this point, I'm obsessed with boxing, right? I'm a student of it. I'm watching a lot of boxing. And so I'm seeing myself and I'm seeing the people that I love. And I'm like, yeah, this is not happening. So I did the white collar fight and I actually won it. And won it pretty...
Well matched, do you think?
Do you know what? Obviously, you know how these things work with white collar. You just kind of get thrown in. I think I was like 84 kilos, and the guy who I fought was like 92 kilos. Okay. But neither of us had had a fight before, and I kind of just like, I would start each round, run over to the other side of the ring, probably throw about a 10 to 12 punch combo, gas myself out, and spend the rest of the time just jabbing and moving.
Was it a charity dinner show or something?
Literally that, yeah. So won that, and I was like, okay, cool. Maybe not the Olympics, but I feel like I'm good at this. And then there's a guy called Bouncer who owns a brand called Wicked and Bad. Okay. He's been involved in like the urban music scene for quite a long time. He put on a celebrity boxing event and I got the chance to fight against another musician. So I was like, okay, cool. That makes sense. Really fun. Went and fought that person, won that as well. So at this point, I'm like, boxing's great. I turn up and I'll win.
You're a winner.
Exactly. And then a month after that, or 2 months after that, I saw that KSI was going to be fighting and Misfits had then started. So his original opponent pulled out. Because I was obviously just riding a wave, I messaged his manager and I was like, look, if you need somebody else, if anyone else pulls out, I'm there. Like, I'm down the road. Even if you tell me at 6 p.m. there's a pullout, I'll get in the ring. I'm good to go.
Well, that's good. That's brave.
Yeah, no, it's stupidity.
It's
but
stupid. There's a fine line.
I just felt like I was invincible at the time. That didn't happen. But then a month afterwards, Misfits #2 happened. And I got a call.
I said, welcome back. Here's the one that wanted 6 o'clock, he said.
Literally. And they were like, do you want to fight this guy called Anthony Taylor? I was like, yeah, I just want to fight. Now, Anthony Taylor had, I think, 8 professional Bellator fights as a MMA artist, and then 4 professional boxing matches. And I think I fought him in the September. And I think in the July, he just went 8 rounds of Tommy Fury.
Yeah.
And
that's a massive step up, right?
It was a massive step up. And have you seen it out of interest?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, cool. So I get there and I didn't realize he'd had that much experience either. It's during fight week when we're doing the media, we're doing the press stuff. And someone who's interviewing us is like, so he's had 4 or 5 professional boxing matches, like blah, 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 blah. What has made you take this fight? And inside I'm thinking...
bravery, stupidity.
I wasn't told that. But I'm here now.
Oh, I see. You weren't told that.
No,
right, okay.
But I'm like, I'm here now.
The,
so
the stats weren't on the paper before you signed it. Right, okay.
And I was, because a couple of them were down in Mexico, this, that, and the other, but I was still like, whatever, I can do this. I'm doing it anyway, right? So we get into the ring. Obviously, referee speaks to us, takes us apart into the corners. Crowds there. I think this is in front of about 10,000 people.
Where was it?
This was it? No, it wasn't Telford. It was in Leeds.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was in an arena in Leeds.
Yeah.
First bell goes. I go into the middle. In the southpaw stance. I throw a jab. He slips it, hits me with an overhand right, and I go down. First punch. 3 seconds. 3 seconds into it. And I remember I hit the floor.
That happened with Nassim Hamid against a poor guy called Saeed Lawal, where Nas, I don't know if you've seen that, he came out of the corner and he did this sort of move and he just hit him with an uppercut and fight was over. I mean, it was extraordinary. So a similar thing, but you got up?
I got up, so I hit the floor and I told myself, just get up. And I remember I stood there and I went, wow. And you can actually see me on the camera as well. So I was just like, what is going on? I've had the second fight I had against a rapper who'd never had a fight before. There was like no punches landed. The white collar fight, as I said, I'm just jabbing and moving against another novice. There's no punches landed.
This was welcome to...
Yeah, no one's ever countered me before. No one's ever caught me with a shot properly before. So I just hit the deck, got up, and I was like, okay, this is it. Thankfully, it was only a 3-rounder. So it was just bite down on gum shield and just fight through it. So I lost the fight, but
went the distance.
Yeah, went the distance, and I was really proud of myself that I went out swinging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that led to more?
That led to more. So I got quite lucky after that. Someone who was quite a big name in our world called King Kenny.
Yes, King Kenny.
Obviously saw that, and he was lined up for like a really big fight against a guy called Salt Pappy. So I think they were kind of scoping people that fought in Southpaw.
Yeah, I saw it on the Tommy Fury Kerr-Seibel. He was.
Yes, and that fight is actually now going to happen on a massive card in November, I think. But I kind of ruined it at the time. So I think they chose me because I was a Southpaw and they felt like it would be a comfortable fight for Kenny. But I ended up beating him.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah, but again, he'd had maybe like 3 fights at the time, but he was an influencer. So it was like within our space, it's like I'm good for our world.
Yes.
Anthony Taylor was just...
Yes. Because you never wanted to turn pro as in be a boxer. Really.
No.
It was all, this was just... You like the idea. There was a bit of money. It was a chance to do something a bit different.
Yeah, it was just... Do you know what? It was more of a case of like, I genuinely fell in love with boxing. Like 100%. And when I said, I wonder if I start now, can I make the Olympics? I was being 100% serious. Like the answer was unequivocally no, but the thought process was genuine.
The desire was there.
So I was like, I wonder how good I can be. So it was always a case of, and I'm still in that place now where I'm like, I'm going to keep on going until I figure out.
So how many have you had now? 5, 6?
I've had 6 fights now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the plan? Is the plan to have more in this world? And
yeah, so I thought
or put it on hold because of the doco, or what's the...
So I fought 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And I won.
Yep.
So hopefully...
I saw that result.
The next fight I have will come within the same time period as the documentary as well, because Miles, who's in the group, has also fought on Misfits once before.
Okay.
But he lost. So I would also
Miles, who's in the jungle.
Yes.
Yes.
So I would also love for us to fight together at the same time and use that to also push the music.
Great
and
story.
it be like we're fighting for something else other than
It's all about stories. All
100%.
all about hooking in the audience.
Yeah. So that would be the narrative.
Have you got
it.
a dream beyond that? I mean, is there anything you want to do with boxing, or is it? How old are you now?
I'm 33.
33. So
Yeah.
is it just that you'll stay in the sort of safer space? Boxing isn't safe; it's a dangerous sport.
Yep.
But do you think you'll stay in this sort of area rather than get any more expectations to go to the Olympics or try and take on a British champion or something?
Maybe if the Olympics is another 2 years, but I think obviously 4 years might be a bit much. I think the goal is still to just try and get. It's funny, it goes back to football. The goal is actually just to get as much out of myself as I can, and just to be as good as I can be. So I moved to Shoot Fighters recently.
Yep.
Which has been absolutely horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But
They work you hard, don't they?
Yeah, super, super hard. But it's been amazing to see what hard work really looks like. It's been amazing to see people like Derek Chisora in there and just understanding what greatness
They're
is.
preparing for Usyk, didn't they?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So even most recently for Joe Joyce as well.
Yeah.
So it's been great to see that firsthand, and so I'm just like, okay, cool. I want to see how much I can get out of myself, and if that is me winning a belt in Misfits, amazing. If that's I get way beyond that, and it's like, no, I should turn over and be. I mean, I think we have we're pros anyway. But if it was like go down a different route, I'm fine with that as well. It's basically just what can I do? How far can I go? How good can I be?
Okay, so Misfits boxing, right?
Yep.
We love it. We hate it. We think it's this. We think it's that. I mean, within the boxing trade, probably the amount of people that have been sitting here in the past would not turn their noses up, but say, hey, this isn't real boxing. And we've got, young fighters who have had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights. They're trying to make a name for themselves. They're not getting paid very much. And suddenly you've got this huge Misfits show. I mean, I changed my thought process on this when KSI fought Logan Paul in America. So suddenly Eddie said, we're going to do this and it's going to be in the States. And I remember thinking, I was really excited because I thought at Sky it was all about doing something different. Pay-per-views were all about storytelling, whether it was Froch and Groves or Hay and Bellew or Klitschko and Fury. We had to have compelling tales.
Yeah.
The gloves are off, all of those sort of programs. And I remember thinking at the time, okay, it's a different audience. It's going to be a younger audience. It's going to be maybe priced differently. But I'm going to throw myself into it. I remember my son, who's just turned 17, actually, he was probably about 10 at the time when Lawrence Okoli fought Isaac Chamberlain. And they fought at the O2, and it was a big domestic sort of fight. Both of them were unbeaten. And I said to him that morning, I said, who do you think wins the fight? I said, Chamberlain or Okoli? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, who wins the fight? He said, well, KSI's fighting. He's going to win. I said, who's KSI? He said, what do you mean you don't know who KSI is? He's got 4 million. What are you talking about? And he was, I think, 10 or 11 at the time. And I said, I've never heard of him. And KSI was fighting Joe Weller, who I've got to know both of them over the years. And they were fighting, I think, at the Copper Box the same night. I think the average age was 13, 14 at the time. But it was the start, and Joe was probably the one that started it all.
Yeah.
He lost, KSI won the fight, and suddenly it was to KSI and Logan Paul. And when it came to in front of us, we were a channel or a sports channel, the biggest sports broadcaster in Britain. It's all about boxing. It's about heritage, legacy. My heroes of Tommy Hearns and Barry McGuigan and all that. And we've done Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson and Hatton and Joshua and Hamed and all these fighters, Calzaghe. Suddenly, you've got Logan Paul and KSI. And there's two ways of looking at it. You either think, really? Or you think, hey, this could be fun. And I just was like, this could be fun. And I knew KSI had fought a bit, and he trained in the States with Vidal Riley, had been with Mayweather's gym, so I knew a bit about that. I went to see Logan Paul. I went out to America, and I sat in his house in LA, this sort of sprawling, almost like a frat house, and all sorts of things were going on in that house. It was mad. It was like, there was all sorts of people filming stuff. It was fantastic. It was great, actually, and I really got on with him, and I sort of learned about how dedicated he'd been to the YouTube world, and how much he'd sort of put in for this, and there he was boxing, and it was never like I'm going to be the best. But it was, this is the level, and I take it that KSI and Logan Paul were well matched, and they sold out the Staples Center. And okay, we had Billy Joe Saunders, and I think we had maybe Devin Haney that night, so there was some boxing in it, but. It was a fight, and I guess as a purist, as a connoisseur, you look at it and think that's a British title fight or a European or a world title fight. No, it's not. It's a fight between two guys who've got a huge following, and it's great for the sport because it's putting new eyeballs on. And for me at Sky, it was all about, right, we've got a trade sport, let's open it up to different audiences. We did it a little bit when Eddie, Sir, and Simon Matcham, we went to Andy Murray, who loved boxing, Rory McIlroy, Wayne Rooney, and we said, let's try and sort of make it a bit wider, not just in the trade. And this was another step for us. Yeah. But I still think that now people look at Misfits and think, why? When fighters are trying so hard and that's their life and their profession, and yet influencers and musicians like you are going into this world, that there's still that criticism. And I sit there thinking, no, it's entertainment. Right, it's entertainment. And I was still ill, recovering from cancer, and I went up to the Misfit show in Manchester because my daughter fancied Tommy Fury. So she's like, I want to see Tommy Fury. Yeah. And I said, okay. So we went to see the Fury KSI fight. We got in early. It was packed.
From our shows are packed from fight
the moment,
one. Yeah.
The moment, right, that Manchester Arena was packed. And I've seen it packed, obviously, over the years, with the great fights that have happened there. The Froch Groves 1 fight, the Hatton fights, Calzaghe and Lacey, all those great fights. But this was packed from 5 o'clock, and people actually did not move. Yeah. They stayed there through all the card. I didn't know half of these people. Obviously, I knew Tommy and KSI. Yeah. I watched it, and I thoroughly enjoyed the evening. Yeah. And you know what? It's entertainment, right? And I think sometimes you've got to take off those boxing hats. You've got to think, right, it's still the fight game, but okay, it's as long as everyone's well matched, everyone's having fun. It's picking entertainment, different people. You can make rivalries, tell stories. Yeah, it's fabulous.
And that is what our world is about. And I have to admit, I do feel what people are saying a little bit, because there are times where I will get a message or someone will say that they saw me boxing and decided to start boxing as a result of that.
Wow.
And I'm like, don't start because of me. Start because of Floyd Mayweather, or start because of someone else. I'm like, I'm undeserving to be your inspiration in that sense. But then there's another part of it, which is for a lot of people, by the time we see Canelo, or by the time we see any of Joe Cordina or any of these great fighters, they are at times too far away to be an inspiration. So the level of it is so high that for a lot of people, it's like it's too far removed. Mm-hmm. Whereas sometimes when it's people like us, they literally get to see us go from, I can't fight at all, I don't even know how to throw a jab, to, oh, okay, I can throw a half decent jab and I've got in the ring and I've done it. So I think sometimes it can be really inspiring from that perspective, because it's a lot easier to see the progression because it's closer to where they are, because the level is lower. And then also the space is in a really weird situation at the moment, whereby now it's about 3 years old where it's been super established, right? And at the start of it,
Cal and Nissa are involved, and it's, that gives it authenticity as well. Big boxing promoters for many, many years.
Yep. And at the start, it was a lot of, okay, we're just entertainers and we're just going to fight each other and we've got no boxing experience. But you've now got a situation whereby there are people like me, like King Kenny, like Salt Pappy, like KSI, who for the past 3 years have actually prioritized this over anything else. Yeah. And have now had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights.
Yes.
In arenas in front of thousands of people.
Yes.
Have gone through the camps. Yep. Have done the rounds in sparring.
Yep. And
we can now box. And it's not that we are.
So do you feel that people don't have that respect for you? And then the other sort of side point is, what about the young fighters who have been amateurs, they've turned pro, they've done it since, as you were saying, like football, they've done it since a young age, and they're not getting nearly the same money or the same exposure that you get on Misfits?
So I think from a respect perspective, I think we get respect from who we need to get respect from. Like, if you are a purist boxing lover, we're not here to get your respect. This isn't actually for you. I'll
No.
be completely honest. Like,
It's like another version of the sport.
exactly. Like, it's just a lower level.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's just a lower level. So if you love watching Champions League football and you go down and you watch St. Albans versus Ebbsfleet, you're not going to see the same level of football there. But some people say it's faster. It's more blood and thunder. I prefer watching non-league football to watching that where it's more tactical, methodical, etc. So it's the same sport, but it's just at a different level. You can take your pick. And as far as for the kids that are coming up and have kind of paid their dues and really, really worked for it, on the one hand, because I'm somebody who loves sport, I look at it and I'm like, I've almost felt somewhat guilty, like to a certain extent, where I'm like, whoa, like there's a couple of people, like I know Reece Bellotti, for example, he came out of South Oxy.
Yeah.
And for as long as I can remember, his life has obviously been dedicated to it, and I've seen how much hard work he's put in. But then the flip side...
He's on good form again.
He's on good form again, I know. And on the flip side to it is what you said with regards to Logan, which is actually how dedicated was he to YouTube?
Massively.
Because that's what's put him there.
So I'm not sure people know that. I don't think people know that. They just think turn up, do a few videos, and suddenly you're making millions.
That's not how it works.
It didn't work for him. I know that.
And that is, I think what life has taught me is that if you work hard, it will pay off in one way or another. Sometimes it will pay off in ways that you don't foresee it paying off, but it will pay off. And oftentimes when somebody is in a position, it is because they have worked hard. Maybe not in the way you thought they did, but they have done it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like for somebody, Jay Swingler, who's headlined a card and probably made over 100 grand and sold out an arena. Okay, no, he hasn't grafted for 15 years in boxing, but he grafted for 15 years on YouTube to grow that audience who now want to see him box. So when you look at it holistically, it is still the accumulation of work which has led to that result.
The dedication.
Yeah.
And the commitment.
And the commitment.
And the persistence as well.
For sure.
And sometimes, as you found with the music world, it's twists and turns, and you need to find something else to fill it. And Misfits is going absolutely great guns. And there's it's watched by a huge audience. It's attended by many, many thousands. And I think that as social media has come through, and maybe there's less written about boxing than there was, and it's more on video, on camera, everybody's got, an opinion, and it's all over the place now. Yeah. There is a home.
For sure. And you're also getting a situation whereby the guy who I fought recently has been trained, he was found and trained by BJ Flores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I know BJ well.
He has been in professional camps now for the past 18 months with BJ living in the same house as him, making him live, sleep and breathe boxing and nothing but that. And because this guy made a lot of money from what he was doing beforehand, the rate of improvement because of what he can afford access to is also very different to what somebody who was coming up through small hall shows would be able to do. Like Tyler Denny, who obviously fought last week. I think that's a great story whereby he was living in his one-bed flat in Birmingham, still having to work and juggle boxing at the same time. Some people in the influencer world have enough money to go give me the best nutrition, the best physiotherapy, the best coaching, the best camp right out of the jump, and so the rate of improvement is obviously a lot higher as well.
You talk to Shaquille Thompson, who trains in the morning, then goes and does a whole day's work before going back to box at night because he needs to feed the family. And look what he did the other night in a fantastic performance against River Wilson Ben, one of the best middleweights in the country now. And it's hard.
It is super, super hard. And so I mean that's where in our space we're probably really, really blessed, is that we get the opportunity to dedicate ourselves. So like even before my fight, for example, I didn't do anything else for 3 months. It was just just
And
boxing.
Mams and Calla and this end, a zone, and everybody's onto a fantastic winning formula.
Yep.
It's entertainment. There's rivalries.
Yep.
Who are you going to call out? Who are you going to fight?
Who am I going to fight? So I would love to fight. There's a guy called DTG who
Okay.
actually fought against Miles
Yep.
and stopped him in round 2.
Ah, so revenge.
Yes, because they had
Rak-su revenge.
yes, they had that fight at cruiserweight, and DTG's coming down to light heavyweight, which is where I've been fighting. So I'm like, I would love to get revenge.
You're going to let me know when that's
Miles.
happening. I'll come along.
Well, hopefully it's January, and I think it might be. I mean, I don't know if I should say, but
Go on. Give us an exclusive.
No, it's not an exclusive because it's not confirmed. But I think we might be looking at London as well in January.
Okay,
So
brilliant.
that would be,
that sounds good.
Yeah, I haven't got to fight in London. So
Well, that's it. Brilliant.
I
Just
would
down the
love
road, we'll pop down.
Yeah.
We'll have a look at you. Okay, a few quick fire questions.
Shoot.
AJ obviously has lit the fire. Who's your favourite fighter?
My favourite fighter, Terence Crawford. Yeah.
Good
that
choice.
is like, yeah, if I could have anybody's skill set, it would probably be either him, Shakur, or Boots.
Yep, Boots Ennis, great fighter.
Yeah.
What happens with Terence? Does he fight Canelo?
I would love him to, but I don't think Canelo will do it. I think for Canelo, it's a lose-lose because if he beats him, everybody turns around and says, well, he's coming up from effectively 147. He was undersized at 156, so Canelo, you were supposed to beat him. But then there's a real chance that Terence could beat him, and then if he loses, it's just, yeah, I just feel like it's a lose-lose for Canelo. I don't think he'll take it. And I think Canelo has earned the right. People have a go at him for cherry picking. I think at this point in his career, he's earned the right to cherry pick. So, yeah.
AJ was the inspiration in many ways, but he had the crushing defeat at Wembley against Daniel Dubois. Thoughts on that and how far Daniel can go in the sport?
Yeah. I was flabbergasted. Like, watching it, I just couldn't believe it. Yeah, it hurt as well because because I know him, I care more than I do when I'm watching other boxing fights as well. So it was quite painful to see. But the only thing that gives me some solace in it, and I will get to Dubois, I'm being really one-sided here. The only thing that gives me some solace in it is that I think that AJ got hit with probably the worst shot that you could ask to get hit with, which is an overhand right, slap bang on the chin. Like, it landed completely flush. And he never recovered and was never in the fight again after that. To be honest, a punch like that should probably stop the fight. So if you're AJ and you're in his team, or you're a fan of his, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that is probably the worst thing that could have happened. And obviously you lost the fight. So therefore, if you run it back in a rematch, I find it really hard to believe you will get caught by a bigger shot as clean as that again that early. So therefore, it can only be better in a rematch is where my mind is. So I think if he goes into the rematch, if it was 50-50 the first time round, I personally do believe the rematch would also be 50-50 because I think that went as well for Dubois as it could have possibly gone. I think if Don had written up a script of what he wanted to happen, that's probably what it looked like. As far as Dubois and how far he could go, I think looking at the trouble that Ngannou gave Fury, I think Dubois walking forwards and sticking it on Fury at that pace would give him a lot of trouble. And I don't know if Fury's got the footwork anymore to be able to deal with it. Because I think ever since he joined up and kind of adopted that more Kronk style of planting his feet and trying to hurt people, it's been more entertaining. But against a Dubois, I don't know if that would work. Usyk is a boxing god. I don't think there's anything he can do to beat Usyk. Is to be completely.
You think Usyk again?
Yeah, I think Usyk is just a generational. Like, as I said, Terence Crawford is my favourite, and I love Shakur Stevenson, I love Boots Ennis. But for me, Inoue, Crawford, and Usyk are just a class apart. They are the three boxers, and Canelo as well, to be fair. But for me, they are the three boxers that 20, 30, 40 years from now, like, people will go back and have to study them because what they've done is just, it is just ridiculous.
Yeah, great time. Eras are different. Generation 2020 to 2024, or this sort of era, maybe this Olympic cycle era, you look at it, there are some fantastic fighters and some amazing fights that Turki Al-Sheikh has put together, the umbrella, putting Frank and Eddie and Ben and everybody. There's so much to look forward to. 2025, I agree with you on Usyk. I think he's a boxing god and pound for pound top of my list. 2025, AJ Fury, will we get it?
It's so sad, isn't it, that we haven't had that fight? It's it's actually so sad we haven't got it. I don't know if we will, to be honest with you.
How many more fights does AJ have?
I think it depends on if he wins or not. If
Does he win? Does he beat Dubois in the rematch?
If he beats, he can. I don't know if he will, but he definitely can.
Should he take that rematch?
100% unequivocally, yes.
Next fight.
I think so, because I think I got Eddie Hearn, obviously.
Because he did it with Ruiz, he did it with Usyk,
yep.
and obviously we know the results.
Because, again, the Ruiz fight is more similar to the Dubois fight.
Yeah.
Where against Ruiz, AJ would watch that back and be like, we got caught with a left hook.
Yeah.
We overcommitted with our right hand. Ruiz slipped it. He rolled the punch, came back with a left hook.
But come on, Andy didn't train for the rematch. He turned up massive, didn't he, to Riyadh? AJ boxed beautiful. He did what he had to do, but it's different. Dubois is a 27-year-old animal.
It's different, but AJ made a mistake of overcommitting with his right hand and getting caught with by the left hook, got wobbled and
sure. I mean, Ben Davison was shell shocked. He didn't move his feet. His hands were down. I mean, it couldn't have gone any worse.
And so that's the thing. So going into the Ruiz fight, AJ would have known, if I'm not an idiot, I can beat Ruiz.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I think the Usyk fight, the reason why it was so devastating and the reason why he was so upset after the second one was because actually he did what he was supposed to do and Usyk was just a better man.
Yes.
So I think going into the Dubois fight, I didn't see enough in that to tell me conclusively Dubois is in a league of his own away from AJ that even the best version of AJ can't beat. So I could look you in the eyes and say, the best version of AJ may still lose to Usyk. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think Usyk is that good. I don't think there's that chasm in class between Dubois and AJ. So if I was AJ, I'd go back and I would do it, because Eddie told him to wait until the outcome of the Usyk-Fury fight to see if that Fury fight can happen. But for me, that's a bit defeatist. That's a bit saying, do you know what? I'm giving up on becoming a 3-time world champion. If Fury loses to Usyk, I'll just fight him because that's a big money fight. Which I understand it is sound business sense.
It's a business.
But it is, from a sporting perspective, it's defeatist. And knowing what I know about AJ, I think he'll want to go and right that wrong, because ultimately his goal is still to become undisputed champion.
Ashley, you're an intelligent guy. It's been an absolute pleasure. I could talk to you all day and all evening. Let's finish with, if I had to give you a choice, you could go to any fight in the world or be in any fight, or you could be recording the next #1 hit with Rak-su. Which do you choose? And there's no money involved.
I would pick recording the next #1 hit with Rak-su, because I'd be doing that with my friends.
Perfect. What a great way to finish. I wish you luck. And I'm sure the documentary will be a brilliant watch. Be fantastic following your career in Misfits, as we have with KSI and Tommy Fury's been dipping in and out, and the Pauls and all of that. It's great to have you in here. It's been different, and I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been great to talk to you. I've obviously grown up listening to you commentate on the boxing. So, like I said, when I first walked in, it's a bit surreal being in the same room. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in. We'll keep in touch.
Cheers, man.